In this video, you will understand how CSS Flexbox works, explore all its features and even creating a simple car parking application. Plus, we will see how big companies like YouTube and Google use Flexbox for their layouts. Let's jump right in and start learning. Flexbox is a one-dimensional layout model. It deals with the layout in one dimension at a time, either row or column. Here we have a div tag containing three items in it. One is a div, a block level element occupying full width, while other two are inline elements. Their arrangement is dictated by the HTML layout and their display property, whether it's a block or inline. When you change the container display property as flex, now the children are no longer adhered to the default HTML layout. Instead, they are arranged horizontally by default. Furthermore, all the children within containers are now treated as flex items. Flexbox operates with the two axes. So one is main axis and another one is cross axis. By default, main axis is horizontal, left to right. Cross axis is vertical, top to bottom. The main axis defined by flex direction property and the cross axis run perpendicular to it. Everything we do with the Flexbox refer back to these axes, so it's worth understanding how they work. The flex direction has four properties: row, column, row reverse and column reverse. The default value for the flex direction is row, that is left to right, horizontal. So if you change to row reverse, the main axis will switch from left to right to left. Now if we change the flex direction to column, arranges flex item vertically along the main axis, because once you change the direction to column, the main axis changed vertically and cross axis is horizontal. By default it is top to bottom. If you add a column reverse, it will change the direction from top to bottom to top. So now this flow from bottom to top. So whatever it is, the Flexbox always arrange items based on the main axis where it flows. We can align items based on the main and cross axis. So the justify content property is used to align items on the main axis. By default, the justify content value is flex start. The short form you can write as start as well. So you can see no effect once I add it. You can modify this by changing values as flex end or short form as end, which aligns item at the end of the main axis. So 1, 2, 3. If you set it to center, so it will position all the flex items at the center of main axis. So let's zoom out a little bit. So let's say if we have more empty spaces inside the container, we can efficiently utilize the empty spaces using this property: space evenly between around. Space between, it will divide the extra spaces evenly between the flex item along the main axis. Now we save this. So that here first item is placed at the start of the container, last item placed at the end of the container, and the remaining space is distributed equally between the items. So space around, so it has equal space between the items, and also distribute half of the spaces before the first item and after the last item. So there is a evenly total space is divided equally between the items as well as space before the first item and after the last item. So mostly, and compared to space around, space evenly looks more appealing actually. Aligning items along the cross axis is referred as align items. The default value is stretch, but if the flex item have height, then it will take first. Let's save this, so it won't take any effort. That's because it has that height. If you remove the height of the flex items, then flex items will occupy full height of the container. That's because the default value of the align item is stretch. So now if we change the align items to flex start or just start, the item will move to the start of the cross axis. So the items will move to the start of the cross axis and it won't occupy the full height. If you can change flex end or end. So align items at the end of the cross axis, that is bottom of the cross axis. So if we change to center, centers items along the cross axis. So now we have a baseline. Baseline value will align flex items based on text content baseline, a imaginary line where text sits, so that text within each item vertically aligned. Now comment this, and to understand the baseline, let's change the font size of the item to as 25 pixel. So now you can see, so every text baseline are same. It has empty space on top 1 and 3, but all are sits in the same text line. So this is particularly useful for text contents. So every text baselines will be same here. Now let's add more items to the container. So we add 8 items. Currently it is shrinking all the items by default. If you don't want to shrink items, we can use flex wrap. By default it is no wrap. If you add it as wrap, so this will be wrap items if there is no room for new items on the main axis. If there is no room for flex item, then it will wrap. Now let's just add a height of the flex container. Let's say 200 pixel. Change the direction to column. So this will allow items to wrap vertically because the main axis is now oriented vertically. With the column reverse, wrapping occurs from the bottom to top, while in column mode it wraps from top to bottom. So we have a shorthand property called flex flow. The first value will be flex direction, let's say column reverse. Second value will be the flex wrap value. Here wrap. So if I comment this, yes, nothing happens because both value is similar. Now if you change the flex flow first value as row, so it will change based on the main axis, left to right it wraps. When we add flex wrap set to wrap, a new property is unlocked. Property name is aligned content. So when flex items wrap onto multiple lines, it creating flex lines actually. So each row as per aligned content, it is a flex lines. So this aligned content property determines how these flex lines are aligned along the cross axis when there is extra space available. All the aligned content property similar to the justify content. So let's say flex start, align the flex lines at the start of the cross axis. The short form can give start. So similar to flex end or end, align the flex lines at the end of the cross axis. If you add a centers flex lines along the cross axis. Similar to space around between evenly. So space between, divide extra space evenly between flex lines along the cross axis. So the first flex line is placed at the start, last flex line is at the end, and remaining space is distributed equally between the flex lines. Space around evenly distributed spaces between the flex lines on cross axis. So it has one more property called stretch. Similar to align items, it will take full height or width based on the flex directions. Though items has height, if I comment this, you can see the stretch. So stretch only work if the items don't have fixed height. You need to remember this key point. So here when we change it to column, nothing happens with aligned content. When the direction is column, the aligned content is based on the cross axis, so it is horizontal. That means it should not have width for this. Otherwise the stretch won't work. So based on the directions. So you need to remember justify content is for main axis. So align items and align contents on cross axis. So that's determined based on the flex row. If we change to row, if you just remove the height and width of the flex items, now you can see for row the full height is stretched, for column full width is stretched. That's because the cross axis is now horizontal here, cross axis is now vertical here. That's why. So you can see the difference. Fixed height, if it no fixed height, and based on the max content will set to the width of the items. Let's say if you are increasing something, so the width is based on the content, height is based on the aligned content, stretch, end, start. And there is a shorthand property called place content. So the first value will be the aligned content, last value will be the justify content. So if I change end and justify as center of, so if we change it to start, justify as end, justify as space evenly, center. Remember, when align content is used, align item property no longer controls the alignment of individual flex items on the cross axis. So let's comment the align items. So let's keep the align items and align content. So let's say here I am changing it to center, but it takes no effect because align content is available. So if align content is not available, then align items take into effect. So I need to see the difference, how align items start and end is different from the align content start end. That's because align content is take all the flex lines into the start or end of the container. So align items aligns the whole item, so based on the spaces. So you need to remember there's difference. Now there is a one more property called gap. The gap property allows you to specify amount of space between the items within a flex container. Let's say gap for 10 pixel. Using gap property eliminates the need to manually add margins to create space between the items. If you provide one value, it sets both row gap and the column gap with the same size. So if you provide two values, let's say 10 pixel for row, 20 pixel for columns. So you can see column takes more space. So you can specify separately as row gap 10 pixel, column gap. So if we comment this, so same. Let's say increase the 25 pixels. So the gap is a shorthand property for row and column gap. If you give one, it will apply for both row and column. Let's apply our Flexbox knowledge to this simple car parking application. So consider a scenario where cars are parked inside car set. So this is the entrance. Currently the cars parked in a disorganized manner, leading to misalignment. Ideally, the car should be parked either horizontally or vertically. So the final goal is we need to ensure that every car within the container has ample amount of space for parking and maneuvering in and out smoothly. So for car set container display as flex, can have it horizontally. So when should not squeeze actually. So wrap justify content as center, align content thought of this, and everything should have a gap 40 pixel so that maneuvering will be easy. So you can come and take the cars, they can park it before and after and in the row between each line so that the car can take in and out smoothly. So now let's say more cars are adding. So now this means so everything is parked in a proper way. So this will be the good flex items for this car parking scenario. So if you remove wrapping, so it goes beyond the car set. So wrapping will be the correct centering. Let's say if we adding here, the first cars cannot take the cars easily. So that's why center will be the perfect for horizontal wise. Till now, we only understand flex container properties. To have more control over flex items, we can target them directly. So let's remove other items. Let's save this. Remove the gap. So let's take item 2. So we have flex grow. Flex grow used to determine how flex items should grow relative to each other along the main axis, either row or column, when extra space is available. Let's say for item 2 I gave flex grow as 1. This one takes all the extra space for their width. That's because the main axis is horizontal. Let's say if I change it to column, now the remaining extra space take as a height for the flex item. Change it to row. So if I set item 3 flex grow as 3. So now flex 3 takes more space when compared to 2 and the 1. So this one you can see the growing part. So whenever space is available, so the flex grow will determine how the flex items should grow relative to each other based on the flex grow property. You can see clearly this with, you can, if I apply it to only one property, the grow is taking more. Similar to growing, we have a string dot. So this property is used to specify how much flex items should shrink relative to each other when there isn't enough space along the main axis. So this is unitless property. So if we set flex shrink to, let's say, 4 higher value to the flex item, it will shrink 4 times as quickly as other 2 items when space is limited. So grow, it will work when space is, that's because no wrap. When space is limited, you can see this one shrinking a lot when compared to other 2 items. So if you set to wrap, it will wrap anyway. If you set to no wrap, if it is shrink, the higher value shrinks more. So if you want to understand it more, let's remove this text. Let's say flex shrink 5 here. Now you can see how it shrinks. So you can see the third item shrinks more because it has the higher flex string value. So you need to remember, higher value in flex grow allocate more available space to them, while higher value in flex string causes it to shrink rapidly when compared to other items. We have one more property called flex spaces. Added flex spaces for item 1. So this will set initial size of the flex item along the main axis before the remaining space is distributed. If the item don't have the size, that means width and height, then the content size is used as flex spaces. If we have a flex basis, then that will be applied. Let's add 150 pixel to the item 1. This flex basis now adds 150 pixel as a width minimum size. So when the flex direction is row, it acts as a width. When flex direction is a column, it acts as height. So you need to consider, because this flex base is based on the main axis. Now in the column, the main axis is vertical. So that's why. Now let's add flex basis for item 2. Now flex grow is 1, string value is 2, flex base is 1 pixel for item 2. We have a shorthand property for all these 3 properties. Name is flex. The first value for the flex is grow, second value is shrink, third value is flex basis. So if I remove this, you can see no difference, because now everything is in one property. Let's say 190 pixel. So now it increases 250 pixel. So instead of 3, now it has 1. Now remove this. So mostly for all items we set to flex as 1. So all the item size is now equal. Let's see this value in the inspect element. See the 1. So what the flex here? So default value for the flex grow is 1, shrink is 1. Now flex basis is 0. You don't have any minimum width and height by default if we say flex as 1. We have one more property called align self. These properties allow you to align a single flex item along the cross axis, overriding the alignment set by the container. So let's say align self as center. So now this second property now aligning in the center place. It's overriding the align content or align items property. Item 3 align self as end. So individual flexes alignment we can center it. So currently all the elements are placed according to their position in the HTML document. If you wish to rearrange the order of a particular flex items within a flex container, you can use order property. By default, order value is set to 0 for all the flex items. Let's see. So we want to position them as 4, 2, 1, 3. In this order we have to position them. So what we can do? So the fourth value is the first one. So we need to add order 1, and second value as position 2. So 2, the first value is 3, third element in the fourth position. So now we can see 4, 2, 1, 3. So we change the position based on the order. Order 1, 2, 3 and 4. So based on this order number, it is placed inside the container. If you are looking to debug CSS Flexbox layout, start by opening developer tools in your browser. There is a flex badge near every Flexbox container element. By clicking on this badge, you will see lines on the browser screen that highlight the flex layout. If you hover over every CSS property, it will respectively highlight. So gap, justify content, the space evenly. There is a Flexbox editor located near the display flex declaration. If you click that, you can view all the Flexbox container properties and you can make the modification directly, and it will provide real-time feedback helping you fine-tune the layout. By default, the flex direction is row. Now if I change this to column, it will change. Row reverse, column reverse, wrap, no wrap. So justify content, center, start, flex end, space between. So it will give you real-time feedback. So now you can see align content is not taking any effect. That's because Flexbox is no wrap. You can see this error here. Align content is faded out. That's because you can see the error message. Flex no wrap property prevents align content from having effect. if you enable as a wrap, now align content. So this way you can debug this Flexbox layout and you can choose the right one for your project. Let's look into some real world applications, how YouTube and Google are implementing Flexbox layout in their web pages. Let's explore how YouTube web application utilize Flexbox. Open the developer tool, select the element picker. Now here I select the top search bar, click the flex batch. Now you can see display flex and flex direction is row. So they are using align item as center. So inside it has three flex items. So one is the YouTube logo and the menu icon, and second one is the search box, and third one the profile icon and the notification. So we can notice, so all the flex items also a flex container. That's why you can see this badge for all the properties. So now I'm adding badge for this one. So now we can see, so this one is flex direction of row. Now if I change it to column, this one is changing. Row reverse. So by default row reverse is changing the menu and logo. Column reverse. Similarly, the search box align content center, direction is row. If I change it to column, row and row reverse, they're changing the mic icon. Let's see this left menu. So this left menu also a flex container, but the direction is column. So if I change this to row, now you can see the side menus changed to row. Now column, row reverse. So everything here is a row, here it is column, Flexbox. Now let's explore how the Google search page utilize Flexbox. On the search result page, the search results, you can just open the inspect element. So the search results are contained with the Flexbox. So you can see, so this is, so by default it is row. If I change to row reverse, so rows are changed. So the whole page is a Flexbox as a row. Particularly select a specific result. So this one is column direction. So if I change it to row, now you can see it is row. So the search results also a Flexbox, but the direction is column. Now you can add space between, space evenly, you make it bigger. You can see space evenly. So now you can understand that in real life scenarios, there won't necessarily be only one flex container. Items themselves also act as a container. Therefore, you may encounter situation with nested flex container inside the flex container, creating hierarchical structure. So finally, you need to understand there is a flex container, inside also a flex container, and inside flex container it goes on. So I will give a simple homework to you based on, so just build this a sample pricing page with the header, menus and login, and pricing with the 4 cards, and inside this it is a flex column. So these 4 cards are direction row, and this will be your homework, and comment once you complete. Happy coding and thank you.